One of the long-standing series in modern gaming is undoubtedly Assassin's Creed, from its humble beginnings as a new IP back in 2007 to the massive expansive world that we see today. There have been twists and turns along the way, lumps and bumps as well, remasters and revisits, but has Assassin's Creed become boring? The first Assassin's Creed was a new venture from Ubisoft into a world where the aim was to, would you believe it, assassinate people, but it was a bit of a collectathon at the same time. Ubisoft games are known for their sheer amount of collectibles, and Assassin's Creed could be viewed as the beginning of it all. The first one wasn't exactly groundbreaking by any means, and it wasn't until Assassin's Creed 2 that people really started to notice. Again, there was collectibles, but the story, which supplied Ezio with pure character, was astounding. So much so that two sequels were made, Brotherhood and Revelations. Then came Assassin's Creed 3. If I was going to complain about everything wrong with Assassin's Creed 3, I'd need to do a whole other video. But in a nutshell, the story was dragged on unnecessarily, the world was too open, there were pointless parts to the whole game, and Connor was just an ass. Moving on, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag revolutionised the series with the much loved character Edward Kenway. It almost felt like a breath of fresh air to the series, and with its loose ties to previous titles, it succeeded in making gamers fall in love with the series all over again. There was the ill-fated Skull and Bones from Ubisoft, but yeah, we won't talk about that. Next came Assassin's Creed Rogue and Unity. Rogue was surprisingly good and a lot of fun. It felt like an Assassin's Creed game, but it was going in a direction most would have been really happy with. But Unity was panned by critics. Truth be told, I actually love Unity. Arno was a lovely little scamp who had so many elements of Ezio in him. The story was half decent, and overall, it's such a shame it was released in the state it was, as it could have been the next Assassin's Creed 2. I think Unity probably is still in my top 5 Assassin's Creed games, strangely enough. I mean, keeping in mind that there are more than 15 mainline titles now. Sure, it was buggy and broken upon release, but the memes were good, I guess. Next, Syndicate. I'm going to be brutally honest with this one. It felt forced. It felt that some parts of the game were just jerry-rigged on there for the sake of appeasing non-gamers, as if to say, look how diverse we are. I'm all for diversity, much like everyone out there, but it should be natural and not forced. Forcing diversity comes across as insulting, and although Ubisoft's intentions were good, it wasn't pulled off well at all. Combined with it feeling like a pure snooze fest through most of the story, it was a severely flawed game. Most people probably view Syndicate as the moment Assassin's Creed needed to change. Luckily, so did Ubisoft. It took a break for the first time in years. It was definitely needed. But did Ubisoft learn from their mistakes? Not really. They doubled down on some of the boring stuff and took away some of the mystique and charm of the older titles. And what were we left with? A reborn set of Assassin's Creed games. And for the sake of time, Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla, they just aren't true Assassin's Creed games in the sense that they were 10 years earlier. Yes, they have evolved and that evolution is a step in the right direction, but for the most part, they're just boring. They weren't bad games by any means, but they were just boring. Whether it be story, or the world, or ridiculous amounts of collectibles that Ubisoft like to call side activities, they were visibly more boring than most of the earlier games. And I've noticed I am using the word boring quite a lot. You may be able to come to the conclusion fairly soon of the big question, are they boring? But either way, let's find out if I am just picking on them. Well, honestly, I think it really depends on which ones you play, what sort of gamer you are, and if you're prepared to invest more than 15 hours into it. The older generation of Assassin's Creed games had a sturdy backbone to the content. The collectibles felt relevant to the story, but many of the later games are just open world with hundreds, if not thousands, of collectibles just for the sake of having something extra to do. Sure, if you like collectathons, they're great, but since Syndicate, Ubisoft seems to have put more time into making the worlds bigger, yet emptier, more to do, yet less time actually playing the game. There was just too many things to actually do to appreciate the game in a way you could with the first generation. Valhalla, although impressive as a game, it drags on just far too long for what it is. It just feels like you want to get to the end sooner rather than later. I feel the inspiration for it is very Assassin's Creed 3-ish. Where and when did Assassin's Creed get boring? Some say Origins, some say Syndicate, and some say it's always been boring. While I can't argue against two of those three statements, I think it's fair to say Assassin's Creed 3 was the start of the boredom. What could have been an epic game in an epic setting turned into a boring slog with a character who you just couldn't get along with. He was boring. His father, on the other hand, whew, what a character. Will Assassin's Creed ever change? Probably not. They'll just get bigger and boringer. They'll just get more collectibles and even longer stories with many pointless arcs just to artificially extend the life of the game so it looks like you're getting more for your money. It's just the way Ubisoft works, and they are never going to change. Some people do like that, and I guess as long as Ubisoft creates those sort of games and caters to the people that they want to cater for, i.e. those of you who actually just love to roam around the world collecting things, then yeah, Assassin's Creed games will still sell. There is absolutely no doubt about that. For the modern generation of gamers though, Assassin's Creed in and of itself has become utterly boring. But once again, that does not mean to say that they're bad games. Because if you look at something like Valhalla, yes, it's a slog. It's a long, boring ass game, but it's good. It's nice. Visually, it's very, very appealing. It's fun to play. I think if you really just stick to the story, you'll get enough for your money out there. But then if you go to Assassin's Creed 3, I think no matter what you do, no matter who you ask, they will always have the same opinion of Assassin's Creed 3. It is the biggest letdown of the entire series. How can Ubisoft stop Assassin's Creed being boring? I think what they would really have to do is they'd have to find a way of creating another masterpiece. That is, something like Assassin's Creed 2. If they can find a way to relight that fire, then maybe Assassin's Creed won't be quite as boring in the future. But as it stands right now, yes, Assassin's Creed is boring. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to see more just like this.